I spent 30 days using Linux as my only operating system, and now whenever I use Windows 11, I feel like I'm being tracked, watched, and sold to advertisers. Not metaphorically, literally. Every single day, Windows 11 nags me about OneDrive storage, pesters me to use Edge browser, interrupts my work with suggestions to use Copilot, and treats my desktop like real estate for Microsoft's advertising partners. After experiencing what a clean, focused, respect your user operating system feels like, going back to Windows 11 feels like walking into a store where every product on the shelf is trying to sell you something before you even pick it up. But here's what nobody is telling you about this experience. It is not just about feeling annoyed by pop-ups. There is a fundamental shift happening in personal computing, and most people have no idea they have options. Microsoft is pushing Windows 11 hard and telling everyone they need to upgrade. But what they are not telling you is that the hardware requirements for Windows 11 exclude millions of perfectly functional computers from getting the update. And the alternative, Linux, has become so user-friendly that regular people can install it without knowing how to code. I am going to walk you through everything I learned during my 30-day experiment, why it changed how I think about my computer, and what this means for you whether you switch or not. Pay attention, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand something that most computer users never even consider. The problem is simpler than you think. Microsoft released Windows 11 in October 2021 and immediately started pushing users to upgrade from Windows 10. They said Windows 10 would be supported until October 2025, which means the clock is ticking for hundreds of millions of people who still use Windows 10. But here's the thing that Microsoft does not advertise. Windows 11 requires a specific type of processor, at least 4 gigabytes of RAM, and something called TPM 2.0 security chip that millions of computers built between 2015 and 2020 simply do not have. This means people with otherwise perfectly good computers are being told they need to buy new hardware to run the newest Windows. And if they do not upgrade to Windows 11, they face a choice between staying on Windows 10 with decreasing security updates or switching to something completely different. The timeline is real. Windows 10 end of support is approaching fast. And when Microsoft stops issuing security patches, running an unpatched operating system becomes a serious risk for anyone who uses their computer for banking, work, or storing personal information. This affects you whether you realize it or not. Your options are not as limited as Microsoft wants you to believe. Let me explain how we got here, because the history matters. For decades, Microsoft dominated personal computing by making Windows the default choice for almost every desktop and laptop sold worldwide. They made money from licenses, from business customers, and eventually from services. But in the last 5 years, something changed. Microsoft shifted from selling you software you own to renting you access to software through subscriptions. Office became Microsoft 365. Windows became a service that gets updated constantly. And the business model evolved from buy once, use forever, to pay monthly, always be connected, always be tracked. This shift explains everything about why Windows 11 feels the way it does. When a company shifts from selling you a product to selling access to a platform, their incentives change completely. A product company wants you to be happy, so you buy the next version. A platform company wants you to be engaged, so you keep using their services, seeing their ads, and buying their add-ons. Microsoft is now a platform company, and Windows 11 reflects that reality in every interaction you have with your computer. They want you using OneDrive, Edge, Bing, and Copilot, because each of those services generates revenue through data collection, advertising, and premium subscriptions. Your computer is no longer just your computer. It is a revenue generation opportunity for Microsoft every single day you use it. Now let me tell you about my 30-day journey, because the experience taught me things that no article or review could have prepared me for. I took an older laptop, a Lenovo ThinkPad from 2018 that technically does not meet Windows 11 requirements, and I installed Linux Mint on it. I chose Linux Mint because it looks and feels similar to Windows, making the transition easier for someone used to Microsoft products. The installation took about 45 minutes and required zero technical knowledge beyond following on-screen instructions. The moment the system booted up, I noticed something that took me a few days to fully appreciate. Nothing tried to sell me anything. There were no pop-ups asking me to use a different browser. No notifications about cloud storage subscriptions. No suggestions to try the AI assistant built into my operating system. My desktop was clean. My start menu was organized by me, not by what Microsoft wanted me to click on. Over the first week, I installed all my regular applications. Firefox for browsing, LibreOffice for documents, GIMP for image editing, VLC for videos. Everything I needed was free, open source, and worked perfectly. By the end of the second week, I had forgotten I was using Linux at all. Everything just worked the way a computer should work. The battery lasted longer. The system felt faster. Updates happened in the background without interrupting me. And perhaps most importantly, when I searched for something on my computer, it found files instantly instead of trying to route me through Microsoft's search advertising platform. But here is what surprised me the most. I started noticing things about Windows that I had never noticed before because I had never experienced the alternative. Windows 11 has advertisements built directly into its file explorer. When you open the file manager, Microsoft promotes OneDrive right at the top of the interface. Every time you save a document, Windows suggests you save it to OneDrive instead of your local hard drive. When you open a PDF, Edge browser opens by default, even if you have set a different browser as your default. Windows Security interrupts you to promote Microsoft Defender, which you probably do not even need because most antivirus programs work fine. The operating system is designed to constantly redirect you toward Microsoft products and services, even when you are trying to do something completely unrelated. Using Linux for a month gave me a baseline for what a computer should feel like when nobody's trying to sell me things. Once you have that baseline, returning to Windows 11 feels like walking into a mall where every surface is a billboard. You suddenly notice all the advertising that was always there, but that you had learned to ignore. The difference is not that Linux is perfect. It is not. Some software does not run on Linux. Games often require extra steps. And if something breaks, the support options are different from calling Microsoft. But for everyday computing, for web browsing, document writing, video watching, and general productivity, Linux delivers a user experience that Windows 11 cannot match in terms of respecting your attention and choices. If this is making you think about your own computer situation, I need you to do something right now. Put your answer in the comments below. Do you feel like your computer is trying to sell you things, or do you feel like it is your tool? I read every single comment, and your experience might help someone who is just starting to question whether they have options. Also, hit that like button if you got value from this comparison, because it really helps the channel reach more people who need to hear this perspective. Let me address something that is probably on your mind right now. You might be thinking, Linux sounds great, but I cannot give up my Windows software. That is the biggest concern most people have, and I want to address it directly because the reality is more nuanced than you might expect. For most people doing everyday tasks, the software you need already has a Linux version or a web-based alternative that works just as well. Your web browser works identically. Your email is the same. Your video calls work the same. Your documents can be created and shared using formats that work across any operating system. Microsoft Office files can be opened in LibreOffice and Google Docs without any conversion problems, but I also want to be honest with you. If you use software that only runs on Windows, like certain accounting programs, specialized games, or industry-specific tools that have no alternatives, then switching to Linux requires more planning. Some people solve this problem by keeping a Windows partition for specific applications while using Linux for daily work. Others use tools that let you run Windows applications within Linux. The point is, the barrier to switching is lower than it has ever been, but it is not zero for everyone. Understanding your specific situation matters more than following general advice. The other major concern I hear constantly is about gaming. This is where Windows still has a legitimate advantage, and I will not pretend otherwise. Most PC games are built for Windows, and the tools that make gaming easy on Linux, like Steam's Proton compatibility layer, still have some rough edges. However, the situation has improved dramatically in the past 2 years. Many popular games now run on Linux without any special configuration. Others require a few extra steps that experienced users can handle. And some games simply do not work yet. If gaming is your primary computer activity, Windows might still be the better choice for you. That is an honest assessment, not a Linux evangelist talking. But if you use your computer for work, school, content consumption, and light gaming, the Linux option is more viable than it has ever been. The key is knowing your priorities and making an informed decision instead of just accepting whatever Microsoft tells you is necessary. Let me now explain something that changed my entire perspective on this whole situation. When I was using Windows 11 every day, I thought the ads and prompts were just minor annoyances. I had learned to click past them, dismiss them, ignore them. But after spending a month on Linux, I realized those annoyances are not small at all. They are a constant tax on your attention and productivity. Every time Windows interrupts you to suggest Edge, that is time stolen from whatever you were actually trying to do. Every time OneDrive prompts you to back up your files, that is Microsoft positioning their cloud service as more important than your local storage choices. These interruptions are not accidental. They are designed. Microsoft has teams of engineers working specifically on figuring out how to get you to use their products instead of alternatives. That is their business model, and it directly conflicts with you having a clean, efficient computing experience. Linux has no equivalent to this because the people who make Linux distributions do not make money from advertising or cloud services. They make money from donations, support contracts, and enterprise customers. The incentive structure is completely different, and that difference shows up in how the operating system behaves every single day. Now I want to talk about something more important than operating systems. I want to talk about what this experience taught me about control. When you use Windows 11, Microsoft controls what updates you receive, when you receive them, and what features get added or removed. They can change how your computer works through updates you cannot opt out of. They can add new advertising surfaces whenever they decide it makes business sense. They can deprecate features you rely on because those features no longer serve their business goals. This is not theoretical. Microsoft has done this repeatedly over the years. They removed the ability to set default programs in early versions of Windows 11 and then added it back after user backlash. They changed how Cortana works, how the Start menu functions, and how file associations work through various updates. Your computer runs their software on their terms. When you use Linux, you have options. You can choose which distribution to use, which version to stay on, and which updates to apply. You can use a distribution that never changes unless you decide to update it. You control when and how your operating system evolves. For most people, this level of control sounds like more work. And it can be if you want the absolute latest features. But it also means your computer does not change underneath you without your permission. You decide when to upgrade, not Microsoft. If you know someone who is still running Windows 10 on an older computer, share this video with them right now. They probably have no idea that their options are this simple and that they do not need to buy new hardware just to keep using their computer safely. When you share it, you become part of the solution for people who never knew alternatives existed. Also, tell me in the comments which operating system you are using right now and what your biggest frustration is. I read every single response. Here's what I want you to take away from this entire experience. Using Linux for 30 days was not about proving that Windows is bad. It was about proving that you have real choices that Microsoft wants you never to know about. Windows 11 is a fine operating system for many people, but it is designed to serve Microsoft's interests, not yours. Every feature, every prompt, every update serves their business goals. If that trade-off works for you, then stick with Windows 11. But if you have ever felt like your computer is fighting you more than helping you, if you have ever wondered why simple tasks require clicking through ads and prompts, if you have ever wished your computer would just do what you want without trying to sell you something, then Linux might be worth exploring. The installation is free, the software is free, the privacy protections are better, and the experience of using a computer that respects your attention is genuinely something everyone should at least try once. Let me also address the security question, because this comes up constantly. People say Linux is more secure because fewer people use it, so hackers focus on Windows. That argument has some merit, but it is incomplete. Linux is more secure for several reasons that actually matter. The permission system in Linux requires programs to ask your permission before accessing important parts of your system. Software on Linux cannot silently install things in the background the way Windows programs often do. Updates are delivered quickly, and you can install security patches without waiting for a scheduled update cycle. And because Linux is open source, anyone can review the code to find security problems. That transparency means vulnerabilities get found and fixed faster than in closed systems where only the company's engineers can see the code. Windows 11 is not insecure by any means. Microsoft invests heavily in security, and Windows 11 has many improvements over previous versions. But the fundamental architecture differences between Linux and Windows mean that Linux naturally resists certain types of attacks that Windows remains vulnerable to. For a regular user who wants to browse safely, avoid malware, and keep their data private, Linux provides stronger protections by default without requiring any additional configuration or antivirus software. The practical question is, what should you actually do with this information? Here's my honest recommendation based on your specific situation. If you are using Windows 10 right now and your computer meets Windows 11 requirements, you have some breathing room. Windows 10 still works, and you do not need to rush any decision. But start thinking about your options now, rather than waiting until support ends. If your computer does not meet Windows 11 requirements and you are still on Windows 10, you have 3 paths. Stick with Windows 10, knowing security updates will eventually stop, and accept the risk. Buy a new computer with Windows 11 pre-installed. Or install Linux on your current hardware and extend its useful life by several years at no additional cost. None of these options is wrong. They all involve trade-offs. But knowing the options exist is the first step to making a decision that serves your needs rather than Microsoft's sales goals. If you are already curious about trying Linux, start with Linux Mint or Ubuntu. Both are designed specifically for people transitioning from Windows. Install it on an old computer first so you can explore without risking anything. See how it feels. See if your software works. See if you notice the difference in how the computer respects your time and attention. Worst case, you learned something interesting. Best case, you discovered that your perfectly good computer does not need to be replaced, and you can use it for years to come without paying for a new operating system ever again. If this video helped you understand something that seemed complicated, subscribe to this channel. We make videos like this every week that help you stay ahead of tech changes that affect your daily life. Hit the bell icon so you do not miss our next video, because it continues exactly where this one left off. Also, if you have tried Linux yourself or are thinking about trying it, leave a comment and tell me your experience. The Linux community is incredibly helpful, and your story might inspire someone else to take the leap. Share this video with anyone who feels frustrated by their computer, asking them to buy things or sign up for services they never asked for. They deserve to know they have options. I want to end with something important. The choice between Windows and Linux is not about which one is objectively better for everyone. It is about understanding what you are actually choosing when you choose an operating system. Windows gives you familiarity, software compatibility, and the comfort of knowing that most IT support can help you with problems. Linux gives you control, privacy, performance, and freedom from advertising within your operating system. Neither choice is wrong, but choosing without understanding what you are actually selecting is how people end up feeling frustrated with their computers, feeling like they need to upgrade when they do not, or feeling like their tool is working against them instead of for them. After my 30 days on Linux, I do not plan to completely abandon Windows. I still have Windows on one machine for specific tasks and games that require it. But for my daily work computer, Linux is now my primary choice because it does exactly what I need without constantly trying to sell me something. Your mileage may vary, but the point is you now have information that most people never even look for. Use it, however works best for your situation. Your computer should work for you, not the other way around. And that is the real lesson for my 30-day experiment. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.